Good evening, dear listener. Before we begin our journey tonight, I invite you to get comfortable. Take a deep breath. If you have a blanket nearby, pull it over your shoulders. Perhaps a warm cup of tea rests on your bedside table, still breathing out its gentle steam. Let yourself feel safe. Let yourself feel calm. This story is here for you, to carry you gently into sleep. Now, let us begin. Far beyond the noise of cities, past rolling hills and quiet forests, there lies a path so soft and narrow that many travelers pass it by without noticing. This path, covered in moss and shaded by tall silver-leaved trees, winds slowly downward into a hidden valley. The valley has no name on any map, for it belongs not to time, nor to kings, nor to kingdoms. It belongs to silence, to stars, to dreams. One evening, as the moon rose full and golden, a lone traveler followed this path. He carried no heavy burden, only a lantern whose flame flickered like a drowsy eye. His footsteps made no sound. The deeper he walked, the quieter the world became, as though the valley itself leaned forward, listening. The traveler did not know what he sought. He only knew that the path called to him, gently but firmly, as if saying, "Come, rest here. Let go of what weighs upon you." The air grew cooler, touched with the fragrance of wild lavender and soft earth after rain. Fireflies floated like sparks from invisible candles, drifting slowly, not in haste. Their golden glows lit the edges of the path, guiding him deeper. At last, he reached the valley's threshold. Before him stretched a meadow bathed in moonlight. The grass shimmered like silver threads, and every blade leaned in the same direction, as though the valley itself breathed in rhythm with the night. Above, the sky was clear, each star sharp and bright, yet gentle enough to soothe the eyes. The traveler paused. For the first time in many days, his shoulders relaxed. He set his lantern down, though its light was no longer needed, for the valley glowed with its own quiet radiance. He walked slowly across the meadow. Each step felt softer than the last, as if the ground itself wished him peace. At the meadow's center stood an ancient oak. Its branches stretched wide, heavy with silver-green leaves that shimmered whenever the breeze passed through. The oak seemed alive not only with age, but with presence, as if it remembered every dream whispered beneath it. The traveler placed his hand upon the bark. Warmth spread through his palm, not the warmth of fire, but of comfort, the warmth one feels when a friend clasps your hand and tells you that you are not alone. He sat beneath the oak, listening, and slowly he realized the valley had a voice. It did not speak in words, but in 1,000 tiny sounds woven together. The hush of wind, the soft chime of unseen water, the gentle crackle of leaves settling into rest. Together, these sounds formed a lullaby older than memory itself. His breathing slowed, his eyelids grew heavy. For a moment, he wondered if he should resist sleep, if perhaps there was more to discover, more to see. But the valley whispered, "Rest now. There is time for all things. Tonight is for peace." And so, beneath the branches of the ancient oak, the traveler allowed himself to drift into dreams. The valley held him like a cradle, rocking him gently in the rhythm of the earth's quiet heart. Hours might have passed, or only minutes. Time in the valley did not move as it did in the outside world. Yet when the traveler opened his eyes again, he found that the moon had shifted higher in the sky, painting the meadow in deeper shades of silver. He stood, feeling lighter than before, and noticed a small stream winding nearby. Its water glimmered as though each drop carried a fragment of starlight. Drawn to its glow, he followed the stream, listening to the way it sang softly to itself, a song with no beginning and no end. The stream's voice was like a story told without words, a promise that more wonders waited ahead. The traveler smiled faintly. He did not rush. He did not hurry. He simply walked, step by step, as the valley led him deeper into its embrace. And thus, the night unfolded, quiet, slow, tender. A night not for action, not for haste, but for rest. And so, dear listener, as this first part of our journey draws to a close, I invite you too to rest. Let the rhythm of the valley's lullaby follow you into your own dreams. There will be more to discover tomorrow, in the next chapter. But for now, it is enough to breathe, to be still, and to sleep. Welcome back, dear listener. If you are still awake, perhaps you are lying in bed with your blanket wrapped around you, your body heavier and more relaxed than before. If sleep has already carried you away, then may these words drift into your dreams like a soft echo. Tonight, we continue our gentle journey into the Moonlit Valley. The traveler walked slowly beside the glowing stream, his lantern now tucked away at his side. There was no need for it here. The water glimmered with its own light, casting delicate patterns on the grass and stones. It was as though each ripple carried a memory of the stars above, reflecting them back not with brightness, but with tenderness. Every so often, he paused to kneel beside the water. When he touched it with his fingertips, he felt neither cold nor wet, but a sensation like listening to a lullaby. The stream did not belong to ordinary rivers. It carried not only water but also whispers, whispers of dreams. And as he leaned closer, he could hear them. The stream told stories, not in words, but in fragments of images that passed through his mind like drifting clouds. A child asleep in a cottage, her hand curled around a toy, an old woman resting in her chair by a fireplace, breathing calmly after a long day, a sailor at sea, dreaming of his family far away. The stream carried these dreams gently, never breaking them, always delivering them safely to where they needed to go. The traveler listened. He realized the valley was not only a place of peace but also a keeper of dreams, a guardian that cradled the fragile wishes of all who slept in the world beyond. As he followed the stream further, he noticed the land began to change. The meadow gave way to soft slopes covered in wildflowers, their petals glowing faintly in the moonlight. Lavender, bluebells, and pale white blossoms swayed slowly, though there was no wind. It was as though the flowers moved to the rhythm of the stream's song. The traveler bent down to touch a blossom. It leaned toward him, brushing his fingers softly, and he felt a wave of calm spread through him. He smiled faintly, realizing that the valley offered not only rest but comfort, a deep assurance that all was well. He walked on, his steps unhurried. Soon, the stream widened into a small pool, perfectly round, with water so clear that the stars above seemed to float upon its surface. Around the pool stood a ring of willows, their long branches trailing down like curtains of silver hair. The traveler stepped inside this circle and felt the air grow even quieter, as though the valley wished to give him a moment of pure stillness. He sat by the pool, leaning back against the roots of a willow. Above him, the sky was endless, the stars sharp but gentle, the moon bright yet kind. The pool mirrored everything perfectly, so that it seemed as though he sat between two skies, one above and one below. His thoughts began to drift. He remembered the weight he had carried in the world outside, the restless days, the worries that clung to him like shadows. Yet here, those burdens seemed smaller, like pebbles tossed into the stream, carried away by its endless current. He closed his eyes. The sound of water, the scent of flowers, the hush of willow leaves, all of it wove together into a blanket of calm. Time slipped quietly past, perhaps minutes, perhaps hours. When the traveler opened his eyes again, he found something extraordinary. Floating above the pool were faint shapes, like mist taking form. They shifted gently, becoming clearer until he saw that they were not mist at all, but figures of light, dream spirits born from the stream. They moved slowly, gracefully, as though dancing. One took the form of a deer with antlers like branches of crystal. Another became a bird with wings that shimmered like flowing water. Others were simply soft shapes, unbound, drifting like glowing petals upon the air. The traveler watched them in wonder. They did not startle him, for they carried no fear, no sharpness. They were gentle, as if carved from the essence of sleep itself. One of them, the deer, bent its head toward him. Its eyes, though made of light, held warmth, as though it recognized him. It stepped closer, lowering its antlers so he might rest his hand upon them. And when he did, he felt a pulse of peace travel through him, deeper than any rest he had ever known. The dream spirits circled the pool, their movements creating ripples that carried soft music. Not a melody one could hum, but a vibration that settled into the bones, coaxing them to rest. The traveler felt his body grow heavy, his breathing slow. The spirits seemed to encourage him. "Sleep," they whispered without words. "Sleep, and let us keep watch." So he lay down upon the grass beside the pool, the willow branches hanging above him like a protective veil. The spirits floated nearby, some resting upon the water's surface, others gliding through the air. They kept their silent vigil as the traveler's eyes closed. His dreams came gently. He dreamed of walking barefoot along the edge of the sea, where the waves kissed the shore without hurry. He dreamed of lying in a field where time did not exist, where the sky remained forever twilight. He dreamed of voices, soft, familiar, calling not to demand, but to reassure. "You are safe. You are home." And when he stirred in his sleep, the valley adjusted around him, softening, quieting, keeping him within its cradle. Hours passed. When he finally woke again, the spirits were gone. Their shapes dissolved back into the stream. Yet he did not feel loss. Instead, he felt gratitude for their presence, for their kindness, for the peace they had gifted him. The traveler rose slowly. He bowed his head toward the pool, toward the willows, toward the unseen guardians of the valley. Then he continued his walk, following the stream once more. Ahead, the land began to slope upward, leading toward the shadow of distant hills. The stream narrowed again, whispering softly as though guiding him forward. The traveler did not know where it would lead, but he no longer needed answers. He trusted the valley. He trusted the path. And so, dear listener, as this second part of our journey comes to rest, I invite you to close your eyes as the traveler did beside the willow pool. Imagine the dream spirits floating near, watching over you as you drift into your own sleep. Tomorrow, the path will lead us further into the valley's secrets. But for now, it is enough to breathe, to rest, and to let go. Welcome again, dear listener. If you are lying in bed, perhaps your body feels heavier now, your breath slower, your thoughts quieter. This is a good place to be. Tonight, we continue our wanderer's journey through the valley, deeper, softer, slower. The traveler followed the stream as it narrowed into a thin ribbon of silver light. It led him upward, toward the base of a set of hills that rose like gentle waves against the horizon. Unlike jagged mountains or sharp cliffs, these hills were soft and rounded, their slopes covered in velvety moss that glowed faintly beneath the moonlight. The path curved steadily upward. The traveler placed one foot, then the other, his steps slow and even. Each time his foot touched the moss, it yielded slightly, then rose again, as if the hill itself wished to carry him gently. As he climbed higher, he began to hear something new. At first, he thought it was the wind, but soon he realized it was not wind at all. It was an echo, a faint sound that repeated itself softly, like a voice answering from the hills. He paused, listening. When he exhaled, the sound returned, not loud, not startling, but tender, like the valley was breathing with him. Every sigh, every breath, every soft sound was mirrored back, not to disturb him, but to comfort him. It was as if the hills were saying, "You are not alone. We hear you. We are with you." The traveler continued upward. As he did, the echoes deepened. They did not merely repeat his sounds. They shaped them, transforming them into something calmer. When he breathed with worry, the hills returned, the sounds softened, stretched, made gentle, until his own worry lost its sharpness. When he sighed with weariness, the hills returned it as a lullaby, turning his fatigue into peace. Step by step, he felt lighter. The burdens he once carried became softer, like shadows fading in the twilight. At the top of the first hill, he looked out across the valley. From here, he could see the meadow far below, with the ancient oak glowing faintly in the distance. The stream shimmered like a silver thread, winding through the land. The willow pool was a bright circle of calm, hidden among its protective trees. And further ahead, he saw more hills, their shapes rising like a long, gentle wave stretching into the horizon. Above it all, the moon watched, patient and kind, its light bathing the entire valley in quiet silver. The traveler sat upon the mossy slope. The echoes wrapped around him like invisible hands. They carried his heartbeat outward, then brought it back softened, steady, like a drum slowing to a restful rhythm. He closed his eyes. The echoes became more than sound, they became presence. He felt as though the hills themselves leaned closer, listening to the secret beats of his heart, the unspoken words in his mind. They did not judge nor reply, but simply returned everything to him as peace. "All is well," they seemed to say. All is well. When he opened his eyes again, he noticed something extraordinary. Across the hilltop, small lights began to appear. At first, he thought they were fireflies, but these lights were different. They rose not from the grass, but from the moss itself. Each tiny glow was shaped like a star, complete with delicate rays. They lifted slowly into the air, floating upward like drifting lanterns. The traveler watched in awe. Hundreds, then thousands of these little starlights rose, filling the night sky with more brightness, more depth, until it seemed the heavens themselves were being renewed. The valley was not only beneath the stars, it was creating them, sending them upward like seeds of light. He held out his hand, and one of the starlights landed upon his palm. It was weightless, warm, softer than breath. When it touched him, a memory surfaced, not of the valley, but of his own life. He remembered laughter once shared around a table with loved ones. He remembered a morning when sunlight spilled across a wooden floor. He remembered a moment of kindness, a hand reaching for his when he had felt lost. The light shimmered, carrying these memories upward with it as it rose again into the sky. The traveler understood. The valley gathered not only dreams, but also memories, the gentle ones, the ones worth keeping. And it returned them to the sky so they would never fade, shining forever above. He rose and continued across the hilltops. Each hill echoed his steps, softening them, wrapping him in the assurance that he was safe. More lights drifted upward, filling the sky with new constellations that no human hand had ever mapped. The stars above seemed endless, yet familiar, as if each one carried a memory from someone, somewhere, who had once loved, once hoped, once rested. The traveler's heart grew warm. He felt part of something vast and gentle, a river of dreams, a sky of memories, a valley that kept watch over them all. Eventually, he descended the far side of the hills. The moss gave way once more to meadows, though these were different from the first. Here, the grasses were taller, moving slowly like waves upon the ocean. They whispered as they swayed, their voices blending into a chorus that joined the echoes of the hills. The traveler listened as he walked between them. Their whispers were not words, but feelings, reassurance, patience, serenity. Each blade of grass brushed softly against him, as if blessing his passage. The moon hung lower now, its light turning paler, more delicate, as though the night itself began to lean toward dawn. But still, the valley remained wrapped in its timeless hush, unhurried by the cycles of the outside world. The traveler found a hollow among the grasses, a small nest-like space where the earth curved inward. It seemed meant for rest, as though countless dreamers had laid here before. He lay down, letting the grasses form a shelter around him. Their whispers swayed with the rhythm of his breath. The echoes of the hills reached him still, faint but tender, like lullabies drifting from afar. Above, starlights continued to rise, joining the endless sky. His eyelids grew heavy once more. He allowed them to close. His body sank into the earth's gentle hold. And as he drifted towards sleep again, he felt the valley's message return, soft and certain. You are safe. You are seen. You are loved. Rest now. The traveler slept, and the valley kept watch. And so, dear listener, as this third chapter closes, let yourself feel the echoes around you. Imagine the hills returning your breath, your heartbeat, your worries, softened, gentled, turned into calm. The world will wait. For now, you are carried. Good night, crescent moon. Welcome back, dear listener. If your eyes are already half closed, that is perfect. Part 4 is a soft landing, an ending that is really a beginning of quiet within you. If you drift off at any point, let the story keep moving beneath your dreams. It will carry you safely. The traveler slept in the cradle of tall grass until his body felt as light as breath. When he woke, the moon had dipped low, and its light was tender as the last note of a lullaby. The night did not end here as it did outside the valley. It unspooled in a slow silver ribbon, stretching calmly toward a dawn that took its time. The air tasted of dew and a promise he could not name. He stood and looked across the wide plain. In the far distance, beyond the waving sea of grasses and the soft hills that echoed, something glimmered. Not like the starlights he had watched rise from the moss, nor like the gently glowing stream. This was a steady light, a hearth-like glow, warm and patient, as if someone had tended it for a long, long time. The traveler felt it called to him, not as a command, but as an invitation. He moved toward it with unhurried steps. The valley made room for his passage. Grass parted and swayed back, whispering with friendly voices. Now and then the stream appeared again, threading in and out of earth and root, never losing its soft song. The willows he had met before lifted their branches as if in greeting, strands of silver threaded with a faint music that made his heart slow to the calmest rhythm it had ever known. As he walked, he noticed small signs, a smooth stone carved by water into a bowl, filled to the brim with a moonlit drink. A path of fallen petals that had not browned or curled. A cluster of mushrooms arranged like seats around a stump. The traveler felt that many footsteps had passed this way. Some heavy with sorrow. Some quick with joy. Some so light they seemed to be made of sighs. All had been welcomed. All had been softened by the valley's patient hands. The steady glow drew nearer, brightening like a candle carried toward a door at night. He climbed a gentle rise, and at its crest he found a grove. The trees here were not the silver oaks of the meadow or the willows of the quiet pool. They were slender and tall, with bark as pale as drifting smoke and leaves that trembled at the slightest thought of wind. Between them stood a small house. It was neither old nor new, but it felt ancient in the way a melody can be ancient, familiar as though you have always known it. Its roof was moss, its windows round, its door carved with flowing patterns that resembled water and wind in sleeping faces. A warm light rested in the windows. The traveler stepped closer, then paused, not out of fear, but respect. He lifted a hand and touched the door. It hummed softly beneath his palm, like a held note. Then, without a latch turning or hinges creaking, the door opened. Inside, the room was simple. A low table, a shelf lined with jars of light, tiny constellations captured in glass that pulsed like restful heartbeats. A kettle on a stone hearth, sending soft steam into the air that smelled of herbs and night air and something sweet he could not place. Cushions lay scattered on the floor as if many guests had sat here and slipped into dreams before finishing their tea. At the far side of the room, someone stood. The figure was neither tall nor short, neither old nor young. Their hair was the color of dusk. Their eyes held the hush of the willow pool, and when they smiled, it felt like lying down after a long journey. Their clothing seemed woven from the valley itself, threads of moonlight, strands of water, the shadows of leaves. "Welcome," the person said, and their voice held both warmth and distance, like a shoreline speaking to the sea. "You have walked with care. The valley thanks you." The traveler bowed his head without quite knowing why. "Who are you?" he asked, though the title already formed within him like a word remembered from long ago. "I am the one who keeps watch," the figure said. "Some call me the keeper. Some call me the listener. I am the quiet at the center of this place, and the place is the quiet at the center of me." The traveler felt 100 questions rise and soften. He found the simplest one. Why does this valley exist? The keeper's smile deepened, not with pride, but with fondness. "Because the world grows heavy," they said. "Because burdens need somewhere to set themselves down. Because dreams grow thirsty, and memory needs a sky. Because your kind forgets to rest, and rest is a kind of wisdom." They lifted a hand and gestured to the table. "Sit. You have walked far inside yourself. You are ready to drink." The traveler did as he was asked. The cushion received him like a friend, as if it had known the shape of him all along. The keeper poured tea from the kettle into a shallow cup. The steam curled up like sleep rising. When the traveler lifted the cup, it was not hot or cold, but exactly the temperature of trust. "What is it?" he asked. "Night flower," the keeper replied. "And a little starlight, and a handful of echoes from the hills, to settle your breath." The traveler drank. The taste was gentle and clear. It carried no sharp edge, no sweetness that demanded attention. It flowed through him like a slow river, pooling in all the places that had felt dry. Behind his eyes, tiredness blossomed like a dark rose. Not the tiredness of defeat, but the tiredness that signals a safe ending. The keeper watched him for a time, then spoke again. "You have listened well to the valley. Would you like to hear what it has heard in you?" The traveler nodded. "Very well," the keeper said, and they touched the table with 2 fingertips. Ripples spread across the wood as though it were water. Shapes formed, not clear pictures, but gentle impressions. A worn doorway in the traveler's memory. A hand letting go of another hand at a train platform. A room where morning light slanted across a chair once filled by laughter. A responsibility carried long past its need. A worry that had never been named aloud. None of it accused. All of it simply breathed. These are not weights, the keeper said. They are the imprints where weights used to be. You have set much down since you arrived. The oak took some. The stream carried some. The willows watched over what remained while you slept. The hills placed echoes where noise had been. The traveler's eyes warmed, not with tears that sting, but with tears that cool. Does everyone who comes here leave lighter? He asked. Everyone who is willing, the keeper said. Some visitors cling to their burdens the way a person clings to a cloak in winter, forgetting spring. We do not force. We wait. Sometimes waiting is the kindest medicine. The traveler looked around the room. And those? He asked, nodding toward the jars of light. The keeper turned to them. Dreams, they said. The valley bottles a few each night, the ones that are especially tender. We save them, so that when their dreamers wake and forget, they have not truly lost anything. It's all still here, quietly shining. The traveler felt a slow, deep peace settle over him, leaf by leaf, like shade growing beneath a tree. The keeper's words were not an explanation so much as a lullaby for the mind. Will I need to leave? The traveler asked at last. Or may I stay? The keeper's eyes held the softness of long patience. You may rest as long as you like. And when you go, you will discover something useful. The valley is not a location, but a practice. Once you know the way, it travels with you. The traveler's breath eased. How will I find it again? The keeper poured a second cup of tea and handed it to him with both hands, as one gives a blessing. Listen for the smallest sound that makes you feel like you have already arrived, they said. A kettle settling on a stove. A book closing. Your own breath touching your ribs. That is the threshold. Step through, and the path of moss will be beneath your feet. They set the cup down and rose. Come, they said. There is one more place for you to see. The traveler followed the keeper out of the house and into the grove. The trees bowed their slender crowns as they passed. The steady light from the windows softened behind them, and the valley's wider glow drew close again, the familiar hush, the binding of many soft sounds into one. They walked along a ridge where the grasses grew short, revealing the curve of the land. The moon had tucked itself into a low cradle of cloud, and starlight hung like lanterns on invisible branches. The stream turned briefly beside them, its surface a ribbon of sighs. At the end of the ridge, the ground opened. A bowl-shaped hollow lay waiting, lined with roots and stone. In its center, a shallow pool mirrored the sky. Not the willow pool, this one was smaller, and its surface moved in breath like pulses rather than ripples. It looked as if the valley itself inhaled and exhaled there. The heart pool, the keeper said quietly. Where everything arrives and everything departs. The traveler and the keeper stood at the edge. The pool's glow rose and fell, not bright, not dim, simply constant. When the traveler knelt and touched it with 2 fingers, warmth entered him like a promise fulfilled. His shoulders loosened and a long breath left him. He had not known he'd been holding it. Place one thing here, the keeper said. Only one. Something you are ready to stop carrying on your back and begin carrying in your open hands. The traveler closed his eyes. Many burdens flickered through him, like birds about to lift. He did not choose with his mind. He waited until one rose on its own, a small, heavy thought that had sat for years beneath his ribs. I must be strong at all times, or I will vanish. He did not speak it. Words were not needed. He cupped his hands and let the feeling flow down his arms like water into his palms. Then he placed it into the pool. The surface accepted it without a sound. For a moment, nothing changed. Then the pool inhaled. When it exhaled, the traveler heard a sound like distant rain. He saw a faint light rise from the water, take the shape of a leaf, and drift into the sky. It joined the stars and hung there easily, as if that were where it had always belonged. The gap beneath his ribs did not feel empty. It felt spacious, the kind of openness that invites breath, the kind of openness a bird might look at and recognize as sky. The keeper nodded. Well given. The traveler looked up at the constellations. Some he recognized, others were new, those seeded from the moss-lit hills. He realized that every time someone set something down here, the sky changed. The valley did not erase anything, it transformed it into light. A wind passed, quieter than cloth moving. The grasses swayed. A soft chorus hummed through the earth, and he felt it in the soles of his feet. A reassurance, a welcome, a long exhale that belonged to both the valley and to him. "Will I forget all this when I leave?" the traveler asked. "You will forget precisely enough," the keeper said. "Forgetting is a kindness, too. What matters remains. It will settle into the way you close a door gently, the way you set a cup down softly, the way you speak to yourself when you are tired. The valley is not a story to remember, but a posture to return to." They began to walk back toward the grove. The first color of morning, if it could be called morning, touched a far edge of the sky with pearl. Birds murmured somewhere, not singing yet, simply adjusting their feathers. The stream folded itself into a hush fit for daybreak. At the threshold of the keeper's house, the figure turned, and for a moment the traveler saw them not as one person but as many. The curve of an old woman's smile, the stillness of a sleeping child, the steady gaze of a friend who knows your history and remains. Then those faces flowed together again, and the keeper was only the keeper, as simple and as complete as a single note held pure. "Rest once more before you go," they said. "Let the valley memorize you." The traveler lay upon a cushion and closed his eyes. The roof's moss pressed its coolness into the room. The jars of light glowed without insistence. His breath reached a depth it had never found before, as though it traveled past his body and into the roots of things. He slept, and his sleep was like rain after a long season. When he woke, the hush had not vanished, but he felt its edges thinning into the world beyond. The door stood open. The path of moss waited outside, the same and not the same. The kettle had grown quiet. The jars of light rested like patient stars on a friendly shelf. The keeper stood by the door with a bundle in their hands. It was not cloth or paper. It was the kind of bundle you can carry without arms. A small provision, they said. For leaving, for returning, for all the thresholds you will cross. The traveler bowed. There were no words large enough. He took one step, then another, into the grove, along the ridge, past the pool that breathed. The path showed itself without being sought. The grasses whispered farewell not with sorrow, but with a softness that said, "We will see you in your breathing. We will see you in your listening." He reached the place where the valley's light met the world's ordinary dark. It was not a gate. It was a breath taken and a breath released. He crossed that invisible seam, and the quiet of the valley pressed one last kiss to his shoulder, then rested inside him where it could not be misplaced. Dear listener, the traveler returns by a road that feels like his own pulse, steady, present, calm. He will make tea in a small kitchen and watch the steam rise into a morning filled with necessary things. He will finish tasks. He will speak to people. He will set down what no longer needs to be carried and pick up only what asks to be held gently. When he forgets, he will remember again, by listening for the smallest sound that feels like arriving. And you, wherever you are, wrapped in your blanket, fingertips warm or cool, eyes heavy, the valley has seen you, too. Its oak has made room for your leaning. Its stream has hummed a song with your name inside it. Its hills have returned your breath, softened and safe. If you leave now, the valley will travel with you in the way you close your eyes and let the world be carried without you for a while. The night does not ask for anything. It gives you your own weight, and then it helps you set it down. So let us finish as we began, with stillness. Breathe in through your nose, softly. Hold the breath as if you were holding a sleeping bird. Breathe out, longer than you think you can, and feel the floor or the mattress receive you completely. Again, in, hold, out. You are safe. You are seen. You are loved. Rest now. The valley keeps watch. Good night, crescent moon.